Chelsea Manning has been pardoned by President Barack Obama. Now, there were some rumors circulating around the internet indicating that he was considering recusing Chelsea Manning of her ridiculously long 35-year sentence, and now it turns out to be true. So, according to the New York Times, the decision by Mr. Obama rescued Miss Manning, who twice tried to commit suicide last year, from an uncertain future as a transgender woman incarcerated at the male military prison. So, I honestly didn't really expect this. Even when the rumors were circulating around the internet, I didn't expect it. So it is great news, and I'm happy that there will be some freedom in the near future for Chelsea Manning. She has been jailed for nearly 7 years, and her 35-year sentence was by far the longest punishment ever imposed in the United States for a leak conviction. Manning is set to be free on May 17th of this year rather than 2045.
So here's my general reaction to the story. Okay, so I am super psyched about this. I'm also a little surprised. I want to give President Obama a ton of credit for this, but I do have to be clear about how we got into this mess in the first place. I'll get to that in a second. Let me be a little bit more clear about technically what's happening here. The sentence is being commuted so that, as Anna pointed out, she will at the end have served around 7 years, and that is already a very, very long sentence for a person in this situation. Leaks usually receives a sentence of 1 to 3 years. Now, Chelsea Manning pled guilty without a plea deal. Now, you have to understand what that means. She said, okay, look, I did it, and I wanted to share this information with the American public because I thought it was important that we do so. And she was absolutely right about that. She said, I'm not hiding it, and I'm not trying to cut a better deal for myself here, and so I plead guilty to lesser charges. Now, I want you to understand the viciousness that we used to prosecute her. One, we said, oh, great, we'll accept your plea deals on all the lesser charges. We're going to prosecute you anyway on the higher charges. And when your sentencing comes, we won't give you the normal 1 to 3 years, even though you cooperated every step of the way above and beyond what a normal cooperation is. And they gave her 35 years. She
cooperated, took responsibility, apologized for what she did. And by the way, the leak was incredibly important because it did shine a light for the American public regarding what was happening in the Middle East, particularly Afghanistan and Iraq. More civilians were being killed than what was officially being reported by our government. And so that was important information for us to know, so we can weigh the costs and benefits of engaging in these types of wars. And also,
can I just say, the more lies that she exposed, and that's why they give her a 35-year sentence, because she embarrassed the government. Not because what she revealed was top secret. In fact, it literally wasn't. The highest level of information she revealed was secret, which is not, ironically, not very secret. There are many gradations above that level. So, in fact, today, the Obama administration now turns around and says, well, it's not like the Edward Snowden case. That was some real top secret important information. What she revealed was, less classified. Yeah, well, then why did you give her 35 years? So I'll come back to that in a second, but let me tell you how important it was to the public conversation, though. She also told us about detainee abuse that was happening, by the way, not by us, but by our Iraqi partners. Now, we were covering up for that, and that's important for us to know. How much do we know about how our partners are abusing detainees? And then, as of course Anna pointed out, one of the major revelations was we were covering up how many civilian deaths we had caused in Iraq.
Including the death of 2 Reuters journalists.
So I'll get to that in 1 second. And then there was the intelligence assessment of Guantanamo detainees held without trial. We were telling the whole world and the American people, oh, these guys are super dangerous. Oh, my God, they're the worst of the worst. In reality, we knew a lot of them hadn't done it at all. They were innocent. And so after Chelsea Manning reveals that, we go, yeah, it turns out some of them didn't do it at all. Oops. Well, that's super relevant information because the American people, through their representatives, kept Guantanamo open. Maybe if we knew earlier, maybe, it was also, I think, a huge failure by the Democrats, but it could have affected our public policy. We're supposed to be a democracy. That's supposed to be our government. They can't keep all that information from us. So I think what she did was an enormous public service. And finally, to the Apache helicopter video that Anna's referring to, what always drives me crazy about that is So in the Apache helicopter video she released that we had kept hidden, we killed, and you could argue murdered, 2 Reuters journalists that were covering Iraq. Now the excuse was, well, their cameras might have been weapons, so we fired just in case from a helicopter. We couldn't see it, but just in case we murdered them, right? So that's not all of it. When first responders came to help the wounded, we killed the first responders. And in the video, they laugh about it and they brag about it. What drives me crazy is that even though we have that definitive evidence, no one who actually did the shooting ever served 1 day in jail. They never went to court, they never got convicted, they never got tried. On the other hand, Chelsea Manning got 35 years for letting us know what we did.
Right. And before she even was able to get a trial, she was held in solitary confinement for long periods of time, oftentimes naked. And so it was a torturous punishment for a very long time. And if some of you think, well, this person broke the law and deserves to be punished, well, she has already faced a significant punishment. Again, 7 years behind bars.
And far more than what most leakers get.
So I want to touch on one other part of the story that I think is important. Edward Snowden, who leaked information regarding the NSA and its widespread, indiscriminate spying on the American people, also asked the Obama administration for a pardon. And it does not seem as though the Obama administration will pardon Edward Snowden or plans to even consider him in the same category as Chelsea Manning. Now, Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, gave a reason for this. He said that Chelsea Manning is somebody who went through the military criminal justice process, was exposed to due process, was found guilty and sentenced for her crimes, and she acknowledged wrongdoing. Mr. Snowden fled into the arms of an adversary and has sought refuge in a country that most recently made a concerted effort to undermine confidence in our democracy. So they're essentially saying, no, it's not the same case, and we will not give Edward Snowden a pardon.
So, look, we wanted to free Manning. We might have even made a T-shirt about that at one point. Wow. We want to free Snowden. And as it turns out, in this crazy world, Obama might free Manning, Trump might come in and free Snowden. That is somewhat possible, right? Now that Trump and Russia are best friends and Trump and WikiLeaks are best friends. He would have never pardoned Manning, but he might pardon Snowden. I hope to God that that does happen. In that case, I'll give Trump tremendous credit for that. Now, in this case, final conclusion here is, yes, as I want to thank Obama here for doing the right thing, and I was genuinely surprised, almost shocked. I do want to give you context as to who was responsible for the wrong sentence in the first place. Prosecutors never presented any evidence that anyone got harmed by anything that Chelsea Manning leaked. So to give a 35-year sentence when you couldn't prove that anyone was hurt by it, and that the American people wound up finding out more about their own government, which led to better decision-making, hopefully in public policy for all of us, was unprecedented. They charged her with aiding the enemy. That is a potential capital offense. Now, they didn't try to execute her. Wow, thank you, really appreciate it, right? But it is a very heavy charge. And President Obama has used the Espionage Act more than any other president. In fact, more than all other presidents combined. So the guy who said that he was for transparency actually, in that regard, hated transparency, hated it with a passion. And he charged Manning with several counts of the Espionage Act.
Yes.
Okay? So the reason Chelsea Manning had already served more time in prison than almost any other leaker, and the reason that she got a brutal and unjust punishment in the first place was the Obama administration. Right. So that is also true. It was not, I don't want you to remember wrong, it was not done under the Bush administration. It was done under the Obama administration. But that is partly why I was so surprised today. This is part of what led me to conclude that Obama is not what you think he is. He's got that very charismatic smile and gives great speeches, but behind the scenes, will sometimes have brutal decisions that are nowhere near progressive. But here today, on his way out, at least we have some justice. And maybe I need to reassess about how brutal Obama was, because I've now covered many dozens of stories where he has done things that are unconscionable.
Yeah, his foreign policy was not only an expansion of Bush-era foreign policy. It was in a lot of cases worse. I mean, there was a report that came out a few years ago regarding the faulty intelligence that the Obama administration used in order to do drone strikes. But it didn't matter. The drone strikes didn't stop. Okay, so he not only extended Bush-era policies, he expanded them. And so, yeah, there were a lot of unconscionable decisions that Obama made. There's a little bit of justice in this case, but that doesn't change the fact that his decisions in the Middle East led to more problems.
And so, in the New York Times, in breaking this story, explains that part of the issue here is the Defense Department would have had to pay for gender reassignment surgery because of the recent decisions that they made. And they were uncomfortable doing that. And I was like, oh my God, is that why they let her out? And I don't know if that's 1% of the reason or 51% of the reason. And I don't want to take away credit from Obama because doing the right thing at the end matters a lot, right? But I do want you to know the context of this decision, and that is the entirety of the context. And at the end of the day, I'm glad at least, and my guess is that people will say, oh, people pressured him. And it was the Defense Department that wanted to throw the book at her. And it was the intelligence agencies that wanted to throw the book at her. Yeah, but he's the president. And so he's ultimately responsible. And you can't hide behind, they made me do it. Right. So at least on his way out, he takes charge. And if it was his true intention not to treat her brutally, well, at least he's letting her go 5 months after he goes. But at least she will be out in May, and that is a gigantic relief. And for that, I do thank President Obama. Let's go take on the corporate media. Come join us, be a member, and change the media. tytnetwork.com/join.